Well, I'm really pleased to be joined today by Reverend Helen Stockley of Spurgeons College and Jack Bell of Lowstone Communications. It's great to be with you both. Spurgeons College is a Baptist theological training college based in southeast London. It was founded in 1856 by Charles Spurgeon, and it continues its core activity today of training men and women for Christian leadership in the contemporary world. But we're going to be talking about something a little bit different today, and that is the Faith in Community campaign, which is an initiative of Spurgeons College. I'm really keen to hear more about this campaign and chat with you both. But perhaps before we dive into that, is there anything you'd like to say by way of introduction about who you both are, what you do, and your role as it relates to Spurgeons? Perhaps Helen, you'd like to kick off.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for organising this interview. It's really good to be able to speak. So as you said, I am a Baptist minister at Spurgeons College, and Spurgeons College has really got this rich history of being involved in ministry and mission. Not just training, but also on the ground, seeing social action at work in community. So we're based in South Norwood in London, and we have students from all over the world, both online and travelling to come and study with us. So it's a real eclectic community of people that are learning and studying theology, but also are engaged in community as part of their everyday work.
Brilliant. And Jack, what do you do?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. So I work for a company called Lowstone Communications. We have been working with Spurgeons College for a number of years now across their PR and sort of public affairs engagement. And most recently, we've been supporting them on the Faith in Community campaign, which I think has been a really good opportunity to try to sort of bring together these faith organizations whose sort of contribution during the pandemic to their local communities has been profound, but hasn't necessarily been something which has been sort of very sort of noted about or sort of very visible. So we wanted to sort of use the campaign to bring more visibility to that and sort of really celebrate the work that they've done.
Brilliant. Thanks for that overview. So talking about this campaign, it's called Faith in Community. It was launched in the wake of the pandemic, as you said. You've given us a bit of an intro there, but what's the story behind it? How did it come about? And what do you hope it will achieve as we look to recover really from the pandemic as a society?
Yeah, so as I said, Spurgeons College is training Baptist ministers and leaders from other denominations across the UK. So as one of the leaders of the college in the pandemic, we were hearing the stories of what our students were doing in their local communities in the pandemic. And even at college ourselves, we were approached by the local council, Croydon Council, and asked whether they could borrow our chapel space to be used as a testing centre. So as one of the leaders of the college, we were sitting here thinking there's so many examples of things going on in responses to the pandemic. And actually, we looked around and kind of asked the question, is anyone actually recording this? Is anyone going to note this down? Is anyone going to reflect on this? Because as you all know, we're busy, life moves at a pace, everything's yesterday's news. And we were conscious that actually we wanted to do something that recorded what people did, that gave an opportunity to reflect on it, both personally, but also in the public sphere. So really, it came out of our experience of not only being involved ourselves in a pandemic response, but seeing our students on the front line doing so many different things in the communities that they were working with. And we just wanted to really capture that and record it, really.
Brilliant. So it's kind of it's a way of capturing those stories. Can anybody submit to the campaign?
Yeah, so we were really keen that we got as much coverage as possible, that faith groups could record what they have done, and therefore we set up the website faithincommunity.org.uk, and if you go there you can see the instructions and record what your faith community did in the time of the pandemic. And you can upload photos, you can write some narrative, and in doing that you can then become part of recorded history. So it's not just going to remain on a website, but we're going to print it, we're going to put it into a book and log it in the British Library, because we think that the response of faith communities was so significant. It's such an important piece of social history as well, that we don't want to lose that moment, and we want it to be available for others to reflect on and read about, and also to remember, because there's something important about remembering. We often move on too quickly, and as I said, things just pass us by. But there's a lot of value in remembering and reflecting on what was a very difficult time, not only for faith groups, just for individuals, as their lives were really turned upside down by the pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, great. And I'm really interested to know, as you've kind of collated these stories, as you've begun to sort of see the kinds of things that people are submitting, are there themes that sort of come to the surface in terms of, faith-based activity and what characterizes that? Are there particular stories that you feel to highlight or you want to mention now? What's your kind of perspective as you collate those?
Yes, I think there was two real things that hit us. It's the theme of generosity, but also the theme of commitment. So in terms of generosity, looking at some of the stories that have come in, throughout them all, you see that people have gone out of their way, have done things they would never normally do, and often given up their time freely to help those in the pandemic. One of the ones that I thought was really interesting was the Association of Christian Counsellors. It's a professional body of qualified, accredited counsellors who are from the Christian faith. And normally, obviously, that's their industry, they are paid for their work, but they saw what was going on and they decided to set up a free service for the bereaved and people working in care homes in April 2020, because they recognised that there was a level of trauma that was going on that needed immediate and freely available help. So they set that up. And those people just worked as professional counsellors for free, and that's still enduring today. They've been able to attract some funding for it, but it's amazing that many of the stories that we're hearing about are not just started out of generosity, but they have a long-term commitment. I think of Baptist churches that we have students in and we have connections with who gave up their spaces to be vaccination centres. They just opened their doors. But those relationships, those partnerships with those health providers, with the local council, with the local government, are enduring. They are now having different conversations about how they can work together in the future. They're even having conversations at the moment about what they might be able to do this winter if they need to do more mass vaccinations at some point. So there's that real theme of generosity where people were just giving freely. But what's really fascinating is that although it was a moment in time, it's not the end of the story. The story is continuing as new partnerships and new ways of helping has really sprung out of a moment of great difficulty in the pandemic.
That's really, really encouraging. I think we're often interested at FaithAction about the extent to which, often in moments of crisis, faith groups are there, aren't they? They're helping out, they're getting involved. But we're so passionate about ensuring that continues beyond a point of crisis and does have that longevity, does have that long-term view. So it's really encouraging to hear that from what you're saying, that really is happening at a local level. I suppose building on that, we know that you have support for this work from the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Faith and Society. which is a group of parliamentarians, both from the House of Commons and the Lords, who are interested in this question of the role of faith in society. What would be your message to parliamentarians, to government, whether on a local level or a national level? You know, we're going to have a new Prime Minister coming in September. If you could in a nutshell sort of, you know, capture that message to government about the role of faith as we build back from the pandemic, what would that be?
Yeah, I think our main message would be, come and have a conversation with us. Because actually we are an enduring part of every local community. We are an enduring part of society that spans decades, hundreds of years, and we have resources and opportunities and relationships to be able to partner with local government to make impacts on local community. So I think that, as we mentioned before, we often think of faith groups as for the crisis moment, or personally we encounter faith maybe at times of death or birth or marriage. But I think what the pandemic has highlighted is that faith groups are partners for the long term, that faith groups are able to enable grassroots support, and we're open and willing to work with local government. And I think that is the message that is really important. Continue the conversation. We are here, we want to partner, and we have great connections and opportunity into grassroots and into the people just on the street. So I think it's about dialogue, because it's from dialogue and it's from relationship that then partnerships can be built and impact can be seen in local communities.
Brilliant. And you've also worked in partnership with other faith groups in setting this up, I understand, both across different Christian denominations, but also other faiths and theological boundaries as well. Could you maybe talk a bit about that kind of partnership across faiths, and perhaps the effect of the pandemic on those types of joint working, as well as with government and statutory bodies?
Yes, that's really interesting subject, because as you mentioned, we have a list of partners that we've been doing this campaign with, and one of them, for example, is the Muslim Council of Great Britain. And actually we recognise, as do all faith groups, that faith in all its richness and its diversity has opportunity and to help local communities. And in the pandemic, you see that there are multi-faith responses. People are coming together, working together, pooling their resources for the good of the local community. So we actually think it's really important to have those conversations, not just with local government and with local councils, but across the faith network, so that we can, avoid duplication, maximise our use of resources, and enjoy the richness of each other's faith tradition.
Brilliant. No, that's a great message there to finish on. As we draw to a close, I'm really interested to know, you touched on it a bit already, but are there any plans to showcase this, to make it public? You mentioned the British Library and publication and things like that, but what should we look out for in the future in terms of this project?
Yeah, so at the moment we're in the collation phase, so we're still inviting people to jump onto the website and record their stories, record their experiences. But yes, we are going to then, through a variety of means, from the website, social media, and then ultimately in the book, actually showcase what has happened, and make sure that some of those stories are heard and noted. And also, we are an academic institution, and we've already talked about, is there actually a piece of academic reflection? Could someone do a PhD on the response of faith groups in the pandemic? So we are going to be traveling with these experiences for a while. We want to make sure that we maximise the opportunities of recording them. And we hope that in some small way, people can look back and learn lessons and take note of the way that faith communities helped in the pandemic.
Fantastic. And just to finish, once again, how do we get involved with this project? If someone's watching or listening and they think, great, I've got a brilliant story, what do they need to do to take it further?
Yes, so they need to go to faithincommunity.org.uk, the website, and they can easily, by an online form, upload their experience, photos, information about what happened and what they did as a pandemic response. And that's open to all faith communities. You know, we've got stories from people with a group of 5 people getting together to whole networks across the UK. So whatever shape, size, do jump onto that website, faithincommunity.org.uk, and record your experience.
Brilliant. And is there a time limit on this? Is there a particular window that people need to do this by, or?
It's a very good question, Jeremy. It's a very one that's often asked. We're asking people to make sure they do it in 2022 at the moment, because the project to put it together will probably start next year once we have a complete set of stories.
Brilliant. Helen and Jack, thank you so much for your time. It's been really great chatting to you and hearing more. It's a really great project, and we look forward to keeping in touch about how the work progresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.